In this video, I'm going to show you how we are currently generating leads for PPC agency clients of ours, and I'm going to show you the newest targeting methods that we're using, as well as the newest messaging that we're using, and how to generate all of that in this Clay workbook. So up until now, what we've always done is started with an Apollo list. So we've built an Apollo list and used the tech stack search criteria to just find local businesses usually that are using the Google Ads pixel or the Meta Ads pixel, and that's how we're just building lists. That's how we've done it for a long time, and it's working obviously because we have clients that have been with us for more than a year, PPC agencies, which is great. But what I'm about to show you in this video is going to be a lot more effective, so stay tuned and see how we're doing this. So the first thing that we're doing is we're using Apify, and we're using the Facebook ad library scraper in this example I'm going to show you today. This one here, you can see that it's 75 cents for 1,000 ads, and it's super easy to use. You basically just go on the Facebook ad library and you type in your search term. So for example, HVAC service, and then it's going to show you all the ads available or currently active. You set your filters, whatever filters are available, like currently active, and then you run the actor and it pulls in all the data, and then you can pull that into Clay. So there's actually two different ways that you can get Apify data into Clay. The first thing I'll show you is import data from Apify actor. This is a source, and so this is like, what you would do is you would run an actor in Apify, and then you would just come into Clay, set up that source. Like if you just type Apify here, import data from Apify actor, and then you would choose the actor, choose the run, or choose the task, and then you could choose a specific run, or you could just let it be any run, and it will just pull in all that data. So this is actually my preferred method, and if you wanted to get really fancy with it, you could set up a schedule in Apify to run this scraper, run your saved task on a weekly basis or whatever basis you decide, and then set up this Clay source schedule to run on a schedule, weekly or whatever. That's if you want to automate it fully. Another thing I tried, which didn't work too well, but I just want you to know that it's there, because if you have cases where you need, like if there's an Apify actor that scrapes data for you that is much smaller data sets per row, then this next method I'm about to show you can work really well. So the method is, just the long and short of it is, run Apify actor. This is another action step available in Clay that's going to run an Apify actor. And as you can see, what we're doing here is we're putting in the input that we get from Apify, and we're mapping another column which is called URL encoded query. So as you can see, we have attorney Warren, law firm Warren is just a place, law firm Lancaster, lawyer Lancaster, car accident lawyer Lancaster, and that's getting mapped into this input that we're sending to the Apify actor, and then the Apify actor is running and returning that data and showing, one result found, two results found. But in many cases it wasn't working because the size of the data was just too big. It exceeds the cell limit in Clay, because this data, one result contains like, okay, that's not a good example. Let me find one where an ad was found. Okay, here. So 39 different objects here, and so it was just too big. In many cases the thing would time out or it would exceed the cell limit, but you can run an Apify actor like this to get data straight into your Clay table and just run it on autopilot without having to do anything in Apify. It's just that for this particular use case, the size of the data per cell was just too big. So I scrapped this idea, but it's there for me if I want to use it in the future. I basically just use import data from Apify actor as a source, and you can have up to 10 sources in your table. So you can just choose all the ones that you've already selected and used. So you have to try them first in Apify, get them in here. But anyway, so you get the data in here. We have all these ads, right? So what we're doing here is we don't get some data that we need. So the data that we need is the company domain. So we will get that. Once we get the company domain, based on the page name, based on the company name if possible. So it's a bit hit and miss, but you will get the actual websites in many cases, and just filter out all the stuff you don't want, like advertising or marketing agency. We've categorized that as not okay, meaning that downstream actions will not run because that's a competitor of our client. Accounting service is fine, we would run that and they would get contacted. Banks are not okay, so you get the idea. Just exclude anything that you don't want. There's a lot of books and novels and stuff like this. There's a lot of like erotica being advertised on Facebook recently, which I find are not erotic. I just find it weird that you know Facebook is allowing that, but whatever. So what we then do is send that data to a qualify companies table where we get the company name, the page category, the ad library URL, the website, all this data, right? So we'll normalize the domain, find the missing domain if necessary, get the company description. The company description is then how we qualify the company to make sure that they are. So what this prompt is saying is just, based on what this company does, can they benefit from PPC? Can they benefit from Google ads, Facebook ads? Or are they disqualified? So a disqualified company are companies that are not even permitted to advertise on Google. For example, like CBD type businesses, vaping, you know, sex toys, whatever. So sex toys actually can. What I mean is just, you know, other types of erotic material and products cannot be advertised. So moving on from that point, we get qualified companies and disqualified, unqualified companies. We then have a source from which we can find people. So we'll set up a find people search and choose the source to be that qualified companies list. So whenever you do this, you can choose, so it won't let me do it now because that's already set. So you can only do this the first time you set up a new source. But if I click here, set up a new source, go to companies, and it says, you want to find people from a clay table of companies, and you go, yeah. And then it says, which table? And you go, the qualified companies table. And then it says, you go show details, and it says, do you want to use the default view? And you say, no, I want to use the qualified company view. So I'm only getting the qualified companies people. And then it says, do you want to use the domain merged? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. So that's how you do this. You put in all your job titles and that, and locations of these people. And then you have people at qualified companies who are actually running Facebook ads in an area that you're interested in, like law firms or HVAC or roofing or whatever. So that's how you do that. And then we have the title, so the job title of the people, and we have another AI step to qualify the job titles. So for example, Salesforce administrator, no idea how this person ended up in this table, but the AI caught him and said, no, that person's unqualified. This person's not going to be a decision maker in the process of, you know, reaching out to a law firm to see if they need help with their PPC. You're just not going to reach out to this person. So you have a prompt that handles that. Then we just group everything together, and then we just normalize the full name so that we can feed that into LeadMagic to get the email addresses. If LeadMagic does not get a valid email address, we will use find email and then validate the find email using LeadMagic again. And we will get valid emails. We'll also get emails that are using security gateways and things like that, that we want to put into a different campaign or just not even contact at first. We might contact them later on. Then we have a company description. So we have a pretty good prompt at this point for Clayagent to get a decent company description where we need to know the products or services they offer, who their customers are, what problems they solve or the value they deliver, any notable specialties or differentiators. And so this gives us a nice fleshed out company description that we can use for personalization. So we then, once we have the company description, in many cases we already have the company description from the qualify company step, but just in case we have it here as well. We then have the same with qualify company. That's just in there in case it didn't come through from previous steps. This enables us to just run different workflows using the same table again. So like, imagine if I got a list of just people from somewhere like Apollo where I didn't run them through the qualify company step. I can just put those people straight into this table by importing a CSV, and it would see if their company description is missing, run Clayagent, and then we have the merged company description. And if we're not sure if their company is qualified because that's empty, then run this and output the answer, and then we have the merged one. Then we'll send the table data to our final table, which is the enrichments table. And in our enrichments table, what we're doing is we know that all these people in this table have a valid email address and they are at a qualified company, and they themselves are qualified based on their job titles. So once we have these people, they're all qualified anyway, all we need to do is run our enrichments. So we have things like company type plural, ICP, buyer flavored audience, subject line that is curiosity driven and short and relevant, the word that this industry uses for their consultations or their meetings or their inquiries, and then overlooked keywords 1 and 2. So this is what we're doing is, if we're in the world of PPC, what we're doing is obviously trying to find high value, high intent keywords that your competition might not have discovered yet or that they're not bidding on. And so we have a prompt here called likely overlooked keywords, where what we're saying is, firstly, generate a list of all the obvious keywords that this company would want to target. For example, personal injury lawyer Chicago. This is very obvious. But then what are other long tail, high intent keywords that this company is probably overlooking? And so that's how we get these overlooked keywords that we can use to provoke curiosity and get people thinking about what could be possible if they were targeting these other keywords, right? So that's how we're using these in our personalization, in our messaging. And if you're, you can test all kinds of different angles, but these high intent keywords 1 and 2 are always going to be useful for personalizing the messaging. Then we have the company name normalized. We also generate their top 2 competitors, because this is another way to provoke curiosity about what their competitors are doing with their PPC in this case. So with their top 2 competitors, if they're a local business operating just in Chicago, for example, I don't know why I keep saying Chicago in this video, but whatever. We need to tell this prompt that they are a local business operating only in Chicago, and therefore you need to go and find the top 2 most similar businesses to this company that are also focused on the Chicago market. Whereas if they're nationwide, the prompt needs to know that. And so you have to be careful about how you handle this, because some of these businesses are nationwide, statewide, multiple states, regions, just one city, just one town. And so if you get this wrong, you could make a fool of yourself. So you need to really engineer the prompt for getting the top 2 competitors and make sure that it is robust, and then test it and actually look up the outputs and see if it's outputting accurate data or not. Then we will categorize the company. We will determine the product or service name and a specific detail about the company. So this is based on their company description. Like, you know, I saw that you focus on personal injury law. I also noticed that you serve clients in Texas and Louisiana. So it's just personalization that shows relevance and research. And then job title, the director of communications, the owner, the managing director, a client experience development manager, and administrator. So based on their job title, we would change the word, the prefix word, like the or a, or one of the co-founders, one of the managing partners, you know. So that's basically just the personalization that we're using at this point for PPC agencies. And then we have a formula that determines if all of these columns contain a value. Because once we know that they all contain a value and that they don't contain quotation marks or stupid symbols that would make our whole outreach look very scraped and ridiculous, then we're good to go. So the fields complete is a formula that just says, okay, if all of these personalization columns contain a value and none of them are containing like quotation marks or squiggly brackets or pipe symbols, then return true, otherwise return false. And then once we're at this point, we know we have fully enriched data and we can add them to Instantly or Smart Lead or Email Bison or HeyReach or whatever tool you decide to use. But that's basically it. So hopefully you've found this video useful and it will help you with your PPC agencies outbound. If you would like help to build tables and workflows like this, then click the link in the description and book a call with me. Otherwise, if you found this useful and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, consider subscribing, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Thanks. Bye.